What issues does this code of practice intend to address?
Thank you very much, Sandra. It's just a framework to address issues that have to do with misinformation and disinformation, as well as certain kind of lewd contents that go into online platforms, and also to develop procedures to ensure that any content that is shared within Nigeria complies with the laws and regulations of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. So it's just basically an instrument that provides for procedure and guidelines in dealing with posting information on these multinational platforms as far as it affects Nigeria, and then also trying as much as possible to ensure that people are safe and people's information are actually safe online. So that's just basically.
Okay.
Yes,
okay.
sir.
So let's get into the details of it. Let's get into the content of the draft itself. What does the code require online platforms to do and not do?
Okay, the code basically requires online platforms to provide a contact person within the country where some issues of customer service can be referred to. It also requires them to comply with the laws of the Federal Republic of Nigeria and ensure that anything that is posted in their online environment complies with the laws of Nigeria. It also demands that they comply with some of the issues that come up as far as our local content is concerned. It also tries to outline a sort of relationship between them and the law enforcement agencies, because some of those content may be criminal in nature. It also outlines the fact that they can provide information based on court order and provide an annual report, I think it's quarterly report of their activities within the country. So it's just basically a guide on how these platforms are actually used legally in Nigeria.
Okay, Lagos, you heard the man. So this code requires platforms to ensure Nigerian law can be enforced online, comply quickly with court orders to provide government with information or assistance during investigations, respond within 24 hours to any report from citizens or government about illegal content and take it down, exercise due diligence to ensure that no illegal content is uploaded, provide a dedicated channel for government agencies to make reports, give updates in writing to the reporter about a report, perform risk assessment on all flagged reported content. Then there are also additional requirements for large service platforms, platforms that have over 100,000 users. So be incorporated in Nigeria, like Mr. Edet has said, have a physical address in Nigeria, appoint a liaison officer, have increased human supervision of automated moderation tools, be able to explain to users and government why particular content appears on particular timelines, be able to explain to users and government the reasons behind a particular content being popular, remove all prohibited content as defined by the code. Now, these are the things that this code requires these platforms to do and not do. What do you think about it? 0700-993-993-993. That's for men. For women, 01-465-7190. If you've got questions, we've got NITDA in the room. This is your chance to ask all the questions that you have. Before we get the calls, though, I want to ask you about the prohibited content as the draft code defines it. The code says, quote, prohibited materials is that which is objectionable on the grounds of public interest, morality, order, security, peace, or is otherwise prohibited by applicable Nigerian laws, end quote. Now, there's nothing wrong with the code saying that platforms should not have content that breaks the law, but there's been a lot of pushback on the language around public interest and morality. NITDA, of course, doesn't have the right to issue regulations based on morality. So why was morality added as a grounds of prohibiting content?
All right, thank you very much. I know that has been an issue, and that word morality has been construed as being a subjective word that would deal with will restrict a lot of content, because that's the way it's been interpreted to me.
Okay.
But the terms that we use in that particular section of the code are terms that are already enshrined in Nigerian law.
Okay.
And some of those terms are already in several other provisions that actually build up to this particular code. They are used in certain laws, they are used in certain broadcast codes, they are used in certain other regulations. And so we're just taking a leaf of that. But again, the good thing is that this is a draft.
Okay.
And we are exposing it to the entire Nigerian stakeholders. And we're saying, hey guys, this is what we have. What do you think about what we have? And we are very excited to have opinions like this, where people say, oh, morality shouldn't be a word there. And so these are things that we're going to take into consideration. So yes, as you know, no document is perfect. And so that's the essence of having this kind of conversations and having the opportunity to get the feedback. We've provided Nigerians an opportunity to hit us back with what they think this code should actually address and how they think it should be addressed. And we'll put that within the context of existing laws, and then we'll go ahead and take all these comments into consideration when we are handling the final version of this code.
It's interesting you say that, a lot of the language of this code was gotten from, a lot of other laws that currently exist, And I think the reason that the specific language morality has people concerned is because, well, Nigeria doesn't have a universal moral code enshrined in law. So if we have language in regulation that says an agency can prohibit activity or content on purely moral ground, whose morality will that agency be using to judge that content?
That's quite an interesting question. Again, like I said, we are not running away from that issue, right?
Yeah.
So if Nigerians are not satisfied with that particular word, of course, we'll have to handle it the proper way we handle this kind of inputs into regulations. Okay. And we'll deal with it as it matters. But be rest assured that this is not to place judgment on anybody on the use of social media. It's just an attempt to ensure that things that we put out there actually comply with our local laws, and at every point in time is a matter that the courts can actually handle to determine issues that we are dealing with as far as this code is concerned.
Okay. Now let's talk about supervision and moderation. The draft code says that large platforms shall, quote, provide the necessary human supervision to review and improve the use of automated tools to strengthen accuracy and fairness, checkmate bias and discrimination, to ensure freedom of expression and privacy of users, end quote. So basically, the draft code wants increased human supervision of moderation processes. Now, there's a feasibility issue there. These platforms have tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users generating billions of pieces of content. The platforms say that in order to moderate all this content efficiently and quickly, they need to rely heavily on automated tools and keep the ratio of human moderators very, very low. So is NITDA prepared to accept that increasing human moderators will lead to higher costs for the platforms, which may make operations in Nigeria less appealing?
Well, I don't think that would be the case. And if you the language you've read actually means that it's just a little bit of trying to ensure that this automated moderation does not just run on its own. It's not about changing automated moderation to fully human moderation. No, that's not what we are talking about. But what we are asking for is that let there be some form of human element in terms of that particular moderation. We all know that a lot of these technologies, automated moderation, are imported technologies, so to speak. And it's been noted that sometimes artificial intelligence on its own actually has some bias against certain forms of people and certain types of people. And we also recognize that our culture is slightly different from some other areas where these big tech companies actually operate. So all we want is let there be inputs from humans as far as this moderation is concerned. Let it not just be some machine that it's learning one or two things that would sit there and moderate any type of content and then provide some form of biases against certain type of people. So all we are trying to do is just ensure that we take our local circumstances into consideration when doing this moderation and ensure that there are human inputs to strike that balance between a purely automated environment and a purely human moderated environment. Just that balance to protect the interest of Nigerians. That's what we are gunning for.
Okay. The draft code also requires large platforms to, quote, on demand furnish a user or authorized government agency with information on reason behind popular online content demand, and the factor or figure behind the influence, end quote. So basically, if a piece of content is going viral or becoming very popular, the draft code as written gives NITDA the right to ask the platform why that content is popular, and the platform must investigate the reasons as well as point to any individuals who could have influenced it. And I wonder, why does NITDA need this power? Why does the federal government need to be investigating virality?
Well, I don't think that is investigating virality. That sounds more like research, as far as we're concerned on this, this end of the spectrum.
Okay.
Because there's a different thing about investigation. You know, most times investigation comes from court orders and this kind of information that would eventually lead to criminal prosecution. So that's not what we are talking about in this particular case. Okay. It's just that once in a while, we need to understand what are the trends. This helps government develop policies. This also helps government develop angles of engagement of stakeholders, of the young ones, which are predominantly the users of this particular type of, should I call it, media? Mm-hmm. And so we are not in any way trying to find out why people are doing things or how they are doing their own things. Some of the statistics actually help us in doing a lot of other things behind the scene. And again, I think when you hear the word authorized law enforcement agencies, it sends jitters, down the spines of some people.
With good reason. With good reason.
They're coming to enforce something. Mm-hmm. But be rest assured that whatever information that we get are information that are vettable, information that anybody can actually, provided it has nothing to do with criminal investigations, information that anybody can actually have access to by using the appropriate freedom of information mechanism available here in Nigeria. So that's just our approach to this. Again, like you said, what we put out may come out with a wrong impression and not really what we wanted to put out.
What your intention is, okay? Because I'm going based off of the language of the draft document, and and I need to point something out.
Yeah.
The language of that clause that I read out earlier on doesn't specify that the content has to be legal content like revenge porn or insurrectionist content or anything like that. It simply says popular online content. And again, doesn't this go beyond the brief of enforcing the law? Doesn't it start creeping into monitoring the lives of citizens?
I would, in response to that, sincerely, I would say that some of those information that we are going to get, especially if it has got nothing to do with investigations, will not be attached to any individual's data. So we are not after who posted this, right? So we are after trends. So we don't get that kind of information that people think that we are going to get. We're not going to say, okay, 10 million people viewed this or 10 million people posted this. Can we have their names? No. That's not what we're talking about here. Okay, why is, we want to know this is a trend. Why is there a trend? And so we use those trends to do some of the things that we intend to do as a government agency charged with the responsibility of making the digital environment more comfortable for Nigerians. So that's what we are looking at. We are not looking at any other means of trying to find out who posted what. That's none of our business. As we are not a law enforcement agency, NITDA, for example. That wasn't our intention right from the beginning.
Okay. Have any social media platforms given NITDA any feedback about the draft code of practice?
Yes, indeed.
Okay.
We have received, in fact, before we came up with this code, we had engaged some of these platforms.
Okay.
Of course, you can invite 1 million people and only 4 or 5 people show up who are really interested.
Right.
So we engaged some of these platforms, and we did receive feedback from them.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them were not satisfied with some of the section. Some of them wanted it to be more enforceable. But we are looking at compliance here from the NITDA end. We are not looking at jailing someone because, as you can see, it doesn't focus on punishment. But we want to also develop an industry code that will help us as a country and ensure that when things are put online and they actually violate rules and laws, those things can be dealt with as you would do in an online environment. In fact, we've received a lot of complaints because sometimes people just don't know where to go and complain.
Right.
For example, we got a complaint of someone who had a relative kidnapped, and the relative was eventually murdered, and the picture was posted in an online blog. And it took the person almost a month to try and get that thing off. So in such circumstances, what do you really do? You can't just keep quiet and ignore some of those things. Again, our objective is not really to censor anybody. No, that's our objective. Our objective is to ensure that there are certain things that do not stay online longer than necessary, especially when it causes harm to Nigerians.
In what ways does the current practice of platforms fall short of what is captured in the draft code?
Right. So one of the challenges that we have, a lot of these platforms have generic policies that apply across board, right?
Right.
And so what happens is that whenever they go to a jurisdiction, like let's take, for example, the European Union, right?
Right.
They tend to tweak their policies to comply with the rules and regulations as far as the European Union is concerned, and so also in most other countries.
Right.
So we also have a fair deal as far as those things are concerned.
Right.
For example, if you go to the UK, what you can have access to on Twitter is totally different from what you can have access to if you're joining from Nigeria.
Right.
So we certainly want a fair deal as far as those kind of issues are concerned. Take us also into consideration when you're doing your policies. We have our own peculiarities as well, and we want these peculiarities to be highlighted for the benefit of Nigerians.
Now, my final question, and then I'll let you go. Are there concerns about the capacity of platforms to process requests within the time frame the draft code prescribes, and also about NITDA's capacity to monitor all of these requests and compliance levels?
Like every regulation, right? You cannot have 100% coverage from day one.
Right.
Because sometimes some of those peculiarities are things that are actually new as far as issues are concerned when you're dealing with this platform.
Right.
For example, most of the platforms are multinational, so bringing them to your jurisdiction alone is another big and large challenge.
Right.
Building capacity for enforcement is another challenge. But that doesn't mean that we should not take this step, because if we are ready from day one, then what's the point? So this will also help us develop capacity in order to ensure that these platforms are used adequately, and then we are able to ensure that Nigerians use this platform safely online.
All right. Barrister Emmanuel Edet is the head of legal and board matters at NITDA. NITDA is the Nigeria Information Technology Development Agency, and he's just spent the last 25 minutes talking to us about the draft code of practice that has been created for online platforms. Barrister Edet, if we have more questions, we'll surely reach out. But thank you so much for your time on the show today.